Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Glad you could join me. Yeah, it's the off season, but that doesn't mean we can't talk bird hunting. In fact, I'm going to start a new semi-regular feature, if you don't mind, where I share some of the trips I've made and some of the adventures I've had, in hopes that maybe you'll learn something from it, maybe get inspired to take another trip next season, whatever it is. Let's hope our first Field Debrief goes well today. And of course, getting there, and once you're there, economizing a little bit more so you can buy more ammo and dog food. We're going to talk about that sort of thing as well. You have offered up a whole bunch of great suggestions on how to economize on a hunting trip or even a dog training situation. So stick around for all of that. And your bucket list bird. Yeah, I asked on social media and you delivered. I'm fascinated by some of your answers, and some of you may be fascinated as well. In fact, so much so that you add his bucket list bird to your bucket list. It's all brought to you by Sage and Breaker, Pointers, Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, LandTrust.com, ESPAmerica.com, and HiViz Shooting Systems. Working hard on the shooting here, speaking of that sort of thing. I had so much fun a couple seasons back. Started the season with a 28 gauge and have, of course, since used it a whole lot, but the shooting goes downhill as the season progresses, and so I thought I'd start working more on that with clay target shooting, and then swapping back and forth between a 20 gauge and a 28, just so that I'm doing the same things with the slightly heavier gun than I am with the 28. It's a good discipline, and it's kind of fun, too, but more important than either of those is hopefully I'll put a few more birds on the ground for Flick. Speaking of birds on the ground, you folks have got some dreaming done already, and will probably inspire some more. When I asked on social media, what is your bucket list bird and why, I got some great answers. Jessica Cobb says, quail, any species, but I'd really love to hunt scaled quail. They're just so cool looking. Yeah, that lasts about one trip, Jessica. Then you want to kill them for revenge. They're the runningest birds I've ever met. Way worse than any chukar or quail that you might have on your list other than the scalies. So wonderful places where they live as well, so that might be worthwhile right there. Harry Hill has a regret that many of us do. Sage grouse, didn't hunt them when I had the opportunity, and of course now that's gone in his state and many others. Gary Lawley says, Hell's Canyon, Idaho bird of any kind. Yeah, it is a remote area away from the city lights, Gary. Yeah, and make friends with your Stairmaster before you head over to Hell's Canyon. Prairie chicken is on Lex LeBlanc's bucket list. Need to hunt with a local. By the time you make a correct identification, they're out of range. Well, they are. And boy, if you get a prairie chicken out of range, you just give up. But yeah, I have the same problem, Lex. The first 3 chickens I shot in South Dakota, I thought they were sharptails. Luckily, of course, the seasons are the same. And the total limit is only 3. So, if you're being selective, you want to work on that as well. Being a little colorblind, I can't tell the difference between them. You hold them in the hand and it's obvious, but if they're on the wing, it's a lot harder. Michael Augello. Chukar in Hell's Canyon. What is this obsession with Hell's Canyon? Yeah, I get it. Especially you, Michael. You live in New York. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, there are chukars, and there are some places that are a little bit more accessible than others, so think about it. Lindglock, any upland bird in Africa? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Kyle Broadfoot is also a prairie chicken fan. And maybe the upland slam in Nebraska. Yeah, sounds great. You know, I've never done this, but I really have had the chance a couple times in Alaska. Keith A. Erickson. Ptarmigan. Keith, I want to know where they are in California. I would bet somewhere in the high Sierras. And then, of course, in Nevada, there are a few. And then there's also that Himalayan snowcock in Nevada. But those are hard to find, hard to reach. Almost did a TV show on that snowcock once. Talked to the only guy at the Safari Club convention who would guide that trip. He was usually a mountain lion guide. But he said, yeah, we get on the horses, we ride from the valley floor up to about 10,000 feet elevation. Tie up the horses, walk another 2,000 feet up, and then sit still and be quiet. Yeah, it's a pass shooting situation. No dogs, no stalking. You just wait. Well, Miles Burdett, the snowcock is on your list. That's what it's like. Still want to go? They're in the states you live in. Easy to access minus the hiking. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, lots more of those. If you're looking for an idea, head to all the social media pages and get some thoughts, inspiration, motivation. Thank you all for being a part of the Upland Nation discussion. Yeah, that was kind of fun. And more to come in that regard. I've got more input from you all coming up in the podcast main body where we talk about saving a buck or two. You have some great thoughts there. We'll get to that in just a moment. First, a word from ProPlan Sport Dog Food from Purina. Yeah, if you want to learn why one brand fuels the most sporting dog champions, go to ProPlansport.com. Learn all about the formulations, the ingredients that are in those formulations that will help your dog hunt long and hard, including such things as omega-3 fatty acids and glucosamine that support joint health and mobility, which are critical, of course, during training and throughout your hunting dog's life. That's ProPlansport.com. And shoot straighter? Well, I don't know about straighter, but shoot better with a HiViz sight. That's HiViz sights.com. Yeah, I got this inkling a while back about how I don't care what your shooting style is. Your head, your subconscious needs to know where the muzzle is, even if you don't look at it. We don't aim a shotgun. If we do, then maybe you ought to take a lesson. But we do. Our head needs to know where the muzzle of the shotgun is in relation to whatever you're shooting at. Bird, target, burglar, doesn't matter. So how are you going to do that in a way that is not overt, not conscious? Well, a HiViz sight is one way. They're bright. They're adjustable in that you can use different colored light pipes, different shaped light pipes, whatever works for you. But the whole point is they allow you to never effectively lose the muzzle, lose sight of the muzzle in the sight picture. See what I mean? Well, if you don't, go to HiVizSights.com and you will, believe me. And soon, a video on the concept that'll make it slightly more clear. HiVizSights.com. And I'm putting a lot of those sights on my pointer shotguns. They seem to work better. I mean, they work pretty darn good no matter what, but my shooting seems to be better. If you're a candidate for a Father's Day gift, head on over to pointershotguns.com. Take a look at their entire selection. They've got just about everything. No matter what you consider an upgrade, it's there. Whether it's the configuration, the gauge, the finish, take a look at pointershotguns.com. Remember, just named best over-under for less than $500, by Target-Focused Life. Well, with all the attention in the night sky the last few weeks, the Aurora Borealis, which I guess they'll have to rename because you could see it almost into the deep south in the United States. So, I don't know, the Aurora Redneck Alice, whatever. Anyway, all that attention reminded me of a trip last season. Remember the annular eclipse that you could see in some parts of the country? Well, one of my favorite opening weekend locations was Ground Zero for viewing that annular eclipse. That's the one where you could still see the rim of the sun beyond the dark disk of the moon. It's during the day, and it was fascinating in a lot of ways. But, we didn't realize when we planned our trip down to that spot that it was going to be the spot everybody else planned to go to watch that eclipse. So the camp spot we like so much for all sorts of reasons. Beautiful, fascinating, magical place. In fact, soaking in the hot springs one night, the guy next to me said, if this wasn't so far from civilization, it would be a national park. And I don't know if that'll ever happen. I hope it doesn't happen because, two camps are too crowded in that spot. But there was 135 people in that campground. We were shut out. Luckily, we had an alternate location. So we were able to camp somewhere nearby and access the same spots. But by the time we got moving, it was, almost eclipse time on opening day. So we thought, what the heck, we're going to drive towards our hunting spot. And sure enough, there is a kind of a highway rest area with 30, 35 cars and trucks and just as many telescopes and all these people. I'll just call them eclipse aficionados. Those intensive, geeky types. And I don't care if it's guns, telescopes, eclipses, Grateful Dead, the real hardcore fans. So we stopped because the timing was right. And son of a gun, it was so fun. It turned out to be just a great idea because everybody came over and offered us eclipse glasses and a look through the big telescopes that had lenses that were as big as pie pans. That was cool. We enjoyed the heck out of it and had some fun. But the whole point was chukar hunting. This is down between Oregon and Nevada. And so one of our go-to spots. So after we got a good look at the eclipse and thanked everybody for helping us become a better eclipse fan, we headed on up the hill and off the road. Fascinating in that an event like that attracts so many different types of people, all with one thing in common. But we're winding down some valley in the middle of nowhere. It's definitely a 2-track for 4-wheel drive. We come down around a corner, big rocky outcropping, and there is a family camped there in the middle of nowhere. Maybe like us, just couldn't go to our regular spot because of everybody else, but they were there and having a great time. We made friends with them, shared a coffee. Kept going deeper into the nowhere and had a good time finding some new spots to start with. It's all uphill. No matter where you're going for a chukar hunt, the first thing you do, the first hour is walking, not hunting. It gives the dogs a chance to kind of shake off the dust and get all their yah-yahs out. And it was a beautiful day. So hard to complain about all of that. But But as we got higher and higher, we could watch all the, the vans with the wooden bumpers and the VW Beetles heading back towards civilization on the main highway, 3 or 4 miles downhill from us, and realized, well, okay, it's ours again. So we went to a spot that we'd never been before, and I kept seeing glints and sparkles on the ground. And as we got closer to this one area, it was covered in obsidian. First, I thought it was just the usual, some native, 200 years ago, chipping off a new arrowhead or something like that. But this was acres of obsidian. Now it wasn't solid obsidian, but it was everywhere. I think because it was from a volcanic eruption. That's how it's made, and it must have flown all the way over here probably from that Mount Mazama explosion way back in the day that created Crater Lake. It was everywhere. And so, of course, you pick one up, you put it in your vest. You don't take any more than that. You're not going to do anything with it. But kept an eye on the dog's feet for that reason, and it worked out, pretty good. Most of them are flat, and they're not sticking up, although one did stick up into my tire on the way back. Just like a little arrowhead right into the tire. I'm leaning over looking at some of this stuff, because some of them are not that flat blade-like. Some are what they call Apache tears, kind of blobs, and they're kind of nondescript, but they're dark, they're black. You turn them over, and sometimes they're shiny on the other side. So I'm looking at one of those, which I'd never seen before, when realized I didn't know where the dog was. Look up, check the GPS. He's 200 yards uphill, on point. So I start moving towards him, going around the boulders, over the sagebrush. Finally got, 30, 35 yards from him, and that's about when the birds said, "No, thank you, we're out of here." They all went the other way, except for one. He went down the hill. Yeah, I know. Usually they all go downhill, but I was there. That dumb one, yeah, he did not live to tell about it. He was coming right at me, and it was one of those classics. If you ever want to shoot, teach someone how to shoot, the first thing you do at the target range is you have them shoot incoming targets, and that's exactly what happened here. Flick, of course, after all that frustration, took out his disappointment on the bird, did pick it up, brought it right back. Yeah. It was the first of a whole bunch of kind of cool experiences that happened on that trip, thanks to the eclipse. Was it that magic? Yeah, we saw the usual stuff. Those giant boulders, stone cairns. They call them tall boys over there, or stone boys. Yeah, tall boy is the beer, right? This stone boys, most of the time, I'm told, were put up by Basque sheep herders back in the day. They had nothing better to do, and some people think, and you've seen them on my social media page, sometimes they delineated something, a route or a property line or a good grazing or whatever, but found a bunch of those. There's a new trail out there, not really an official trail. Nobody wore it out, but they're marking the trail with more of those. We found opals and thunder eggs. You familiar with those? Yeah, those are incredible. They look like a lump of volcanic lava, but if you break them open, or they're broken open, inside is an incredible display of crystals. The whole inside, it's like an Easter egg, hollow inside, except for all those crystals. All those things are just some of the many things that we are all lucky enough here in the upland nation to experience when we go on a hunt, no matter what we're hunting for or where we're going. And that's kind of the message that I get every time I stop and look down the hill, look up the hill, usually trying to find the dog, and am reminded of all of that. You know, the wind kicked up a little bit here and there, not too much, but just enough to where we could cool down a little bit. Yeah, opening weekend, it was a little bit warm, and the ground was hot. You know, I was checking Flick's pads quite often. Dave's Labrador kind of waddled over toward a patch of bunch grass about 20 by 20, I bet. And up there, there's not near enough of that. And what we found is exactly what he found. He just kind of stopped, looked at us, looked back at that patch. And that's about when a bird flew from every bunch, you know, a whole bunch of little bunches there, if you will. And there was a bird hiding behind every one. So we got a 15 bird covey rise out of that. And they were going in every direction. We were on level ground at the moment. And Dave, of course, hit a bird with his first shot and then watched me miss on the first shot. I did get him on the second barrel, and finally remembered that focusing on one bird instead of flock shooting is probably the best idea. Lesson learned over and over and over again. Later that day, we were on the other side of a long, steep gorge. Could have been right out of a Lord of the Rings movie. 500-foot deep volcanic walls. And, you know, probably 30, 40 feet wide. But this thing kind of meandered left, right for, you know, a half a mile. And we were on the far side of it. And there's a creek going through it. And there's actually even trout in it. But we were fishing, no, not fishing, we were hunting the other side of it. And usually we're looking for quail in the willows along that creek on the far side. And as we're beating through the brush, and it's head high and taller, I watched Flick kind of, you know, tiptoe into a little point. He looked at me and I looked at him, and something didn't feel right. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, again, I'm going to blame it on the eclipse. But he stood still, but he didn't look like he was real. Then I understood why. A pair of chukars rose out of the willows along the creek. I was so surprised I shot instinctively and actually shot one of them. Well, my buddy Dave stood there open mouthed trying to figure out what the heck chukars were doing there. Well, that was a heck of a start to the hunting day. You know, all three of those finds were fun and somewhat productive. So we kept walking. Maybe we thought we would actually find some quail in there. And I get to a spot and I'm just, you know, pausing for a moment, getting my bearings, trying to figure out where Dave is, where Dave's dog is, where my dog is. And there's an opening, not any bigger than, I don't know, 10 by 10, maybe a little bit more. Nothing on the ground in the way of vegetation, but a little campfire ring, maybe a foot across, with a fire laid in it. Well, firewood. It looked like some kid had nothing better to do in the middle of nowhere, in the midst of this incredible thicket of willows and tall sage and some other things I don't know. Took the time to find the rocks, put them in a ring, find the firewood, if you will, put it inside, teepee-style fire, and then walk away. I'll try and put the picture of that up on on the social media. I don't know. What do you think? I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. We're out on an adventure in, let's just say northern Nevada. That campfire was one of the more fascinating, weird things I've seen over the years. Not just there, but you go on you hunt in the least populated corner of the lower 48 states, and you find really interesting stuff, including a golden eagle nest. Yeah, I didn't recognize it until I was basically on top of it, almost literally. But that's another story for another field debrief. We kept walking that area after picture taking and showing it off to everybody, and sure enough, from behind us comes what I finally figured out was not a jet plane taking over. It was a giant covey of quail, valley quail out here. We didn't get a shot at any of those. By the time we figured it out, they were racing past us over our heads, but we did chase after them and started hunting singles at the bottom of a big, I don't know what to call it, a sump. There's a big cliff, maybe 60, 80 feet high, at the end of a draw. So the draw ended up 60 or 80 feet taller than it should have. At the bottom of that was kind of a little low, kind of a spot that probably held water on a really stormy day coming off of that cliff, and a lot of bleached bones. We figured out wild horse, not so wild cattle, and then I don't even know what else, a little bit of everything else. But you could tell that place was just, a doom spot for a lot of animals who, for one reason or another, going off that cliff. But that was a good enough place to start to climb, and we got out of there pretty fast because it was eerie. You look twice, you watch from behind once in a while just to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, you worry about the dogs. So we heeled the dogs up the hill around that cliff and got onto, the usual, chukar slope, a 30% grade or thereabouts. When I hear a shot from behind me, where the one pair of chukars had jumped in front of Dave, he got that one, I got the other one, and we were back on the hunt. If you know chukar country at all, you know that they'll go anywhere depending on the pressure, but there are some spots that are better to chase singles down, and those are the lower spots or the leveler spots on the hills. That's where they'll drop once in a while. They'll always put something behind them or between you and them, if you will, as they're flying. So they'll swing around a rocky point, or they'll drop down into a bowl like that that's got a lot of boulders in it. They'll run around and hide under boulders. We followed them down into a little spot like that, kind of a shelf, beautiful shelf. Chased them around there, and that's when I really learned to appreciate that 28 gauge. Just walking around in there, I was getting lucky on instinctive shots here and there, and figured I might just have to stick with this for the rest of the season, and I did. But interestingly, as we started going back up the hill, the boulders started getting bigger and bigger, and we weren't going over them anymore. We were going around them. And then I looked up, and there's another big cliff. Right at the top of the ridge, there's, a 40-foot cliff that goes maybe a quarter mile the whole way. It's some volcanic activity. I don't know how that all works. And to me, from down there, out of breath and pretty much worn out, what looked like the biggest petroglyph I'd ever seen. It was what looked to me at the time like a giant, space alien petroglyph, the type. You've seen them all over. And they're very common style. But this thing was 25 feet tall. Of course, that'll get me up the hill, something like that. Just got to take a closer look. And as we get closer and closer, here comes another single and another single and another single. And most of them you can't even get your gun up in time, let alone get a shot between the boulders. But if one comes down the hill in that draw, you know that there's always a draw. You might get a shot, but it's a hard left-right going down the hill crosser below you. So you're not killing a lot of birds, but you're having a good time, and the dogs are, you know, working their butts off on these boulders. You've ever watched a dog negotiate boulders that they have to jump from boulder to boulder? You're not going to get a lot of great dog work there, but it was still fun. We got up close enough, and sure enough, it was not a petroglyph. It was the leavings from a whole bunch of, you might call them pack rats. Out here we call them bushy-tailed wood rats. And they'll live in the holes in those cliffs and those notches and the crevices. And they'll step outside and pee over the edge, and it all turns black and sometimes makes interesting shapes on the landscape, and that was exactly what that was. But while we were up that high, we went up to the bottom of that cliff and found the biggest chukar night roost I've ever seen. It probably went 30 yards along the bottom of that cliff, full of droppings. I mean, no dirt, all droppings for 2-3 feet away from the rock wall. And like I said, 30 yards to a fascinating little archway. And I got some great pictures of that. I'll try and put them up as well, where I got a picture of Dave and his dog backlit in the arch with another mountain range in the background. It was a good time, an extremely good time. I wish I could tell you more, but I don't want to hog the whole podcast talking about the eclipse chukar hunt we started with last season. If you like this kind of stuff, let me know, because I got a million trips to share with you, and I love when you share your trips with me too. So keep that in mind. Our first field debrief from somewhere in northern Nevada on eclipse weekend. The upshot of that whole thing is maybe that, first off, if you find your spot, such as it is, and there's other people there, for the most part, they're going to be pretty good people, and you might actually learn something, and you'll certainly learn that most people are pretty good people. Lucky for us, they all had telescopes, not shotguns, so that worked out just fine. And if you were there and you were helping us out in one way or another, learn more about annular eclipses, thank you. Sure appreciate it, and I hope you got home in one piece. Yeah, you're listening to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, just relating some of the things that I enjoy about out there in the field. In our second half of the podcast, we will have some ways to save money. And then, speaking of bucket list birds, I'll talk to you about a spot for a bucket list bird that nobody mentioned in that list. It's all coming up right after this word from landtrust.com. Get outdoors without the crowds. Yeah, you can discover, shop around and book exclusive access on private lands. Yeah, you and your dog and a friend. It's kind of like VRBO, but for bird hunters. Create a free account at landtrust.com and then poke around, find a state you want to go to. Maybe your bucket list bird is there, or you just want to, you want an uncrowded, high quality bird hunt on private property that is well managed. That's the basic idea. Plan your trip from home. Trust you'll have a place to go, exclusive access. Take care of it all online, and then have a great time with you, your dog, and your friends. And TrulockChokes.com, these guys know what they're talking about. They're engineers, they're designers, they're manufacturers of the highest quality choke tubes. They use the best steel. They heat treat it for the highest strength level. That way you resist wear and, more importantly, what they call choke creep. You know, your chokes start getting loose, and that's not a good thing. All that is due to the metallurgy and the design and engineering. Learn more. They've got 2,000 different choke choices at TrulockChokes.com. Well, a penny saved is a penny earned, and especially when it comes to bird hunting and bird dogs, can never have enough money for dog food and ammo, and here's some suggestions that might help. I remember when I first got into the bird hunting world, I just moved to town, just started a business, just bought a house, and already had a serious fly fishing addiction. So, you know, I didn't have a lot of disposable income, and I learned a lot of these things there. And then I learned a lot from, well, folks like you. And you're going to share some of those lessons with us as well. So let's talk about ways to save a buck or two so we can go on one more trip or go farther, or maybe hire a guide or stop at a lodge, or, you know, all those other things that we might be able to do if we have a few more dollars in our pocket. Maybe it's just buying better beer, or a date night with your long-suffering spouse at the end of the season to make up for it. Well, sort of. First off, you know, some things that I and many of you have suggested are not worthy of cheaping out. These are the things that are worth every penny. Save up your cans and bottles and get the good stuff when it comes to boots, dogs, dog food, and hunting buddies. Yeah, each of those will be with you for a long time and are worth the investment. I think Ben Franklin said it, and I can't remember it all very well, but it was something like, you know, the joy of buying something cheap wears out long. Anyway, you get the idea. Invest in the good stuff, and you'll be happy for a long, long time. And every time you step out of the truck and put the tailgate down for your dog. Transport is the first thing that I think of. You know, I'm not. I used to turn a wrench, made a living at it for a while, but no, thank you anymore. Things have changed too much. You need a computer and way more other equipment than I'll ever have. I'll change the oil, change the fuel filters, you know, rotate the tires. But other than that, I'm going to trust somebody who knows what they're talking about. But when it comes to, you know, rigs themselves, unless you have a real compelling reason, you can save yourself 10 or more grand with a gas engine rather than buying a diesel engine, unless you need it. And, you know, I do. But most people probably don't. So save a few bucks that way. The other thing that I've learned over the years is buying a good used RV will save you money in the long run. Unless you like sleeping on the ground, hey, more power to you. Been there and done that too. But a good used RV, especially these days when everybody who wanted one for COVID decided that it's not their cup of tea, there's some pretty good prices out there. And here's the main reason. Yeah, number one, it's much nicer to sleep indoors. Number two, you can cook. You got a bathroom. You can save bucks on hotels. But more importantly, you can camp where you hunt instead of 60 miles away in the nearest town with a hotel. And then if you have a buddy, he's, you know, helping you save when it comes to gas money, if nothing else. You looking for gear? Well, first off, repurpose a lot of the stuff you already have. A lot of the clothing I use or other related gear originally was designed for rodeo and rock climbing, mountaineering, even fishing. You probably already have most of this stuff you need to outfit yourself. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but if you're just getting started in that world, those are things to think about. And even if you're looking to kind of change, upgrade, whatever, take a look at some of those other areas where people are leading rough lives and need rough gear. Then buy during the off season, buy closeouts. You know, there are retailers out there with a bargain cave, for example. Check out farm and ranch stores, Craigslist, social media, garage sales, and coupon codes. Your wife is probably the best technical advisor when it comes to shopping online, or your husband if it's the other way around. So think about that. Another thing you might do is remember that your dog is going to be with you for 10, 12, 15 years. You better get a good one. I mentioned that earlier on, and it's absolutely true. You save money in other areas, but you make the investment in a dog that was bred and started out in life by a skillful, well-regarded breeder who also hunts. And for your own satisfaction, make sure that your dog purchase is accompanied by a written guarantee, health guarantee, eyes, elbows, hips, thyroid. Some other breeds have other things. And then honor your investment and commitment to the dog by training it to be the best that it can be. But when it comes to dog gear, go ahead and beg, borrow, steal, and buy used. Nobody is going to run their hand admiringly over the crate like a Bond girl does his Aston Martin's fender. If you're a member of a dog club, somebody out there has too much stuff. Barter or buy it. Make your own check cords, tie-out stakes, tip-up cages. You know, the best bird launchers, once your dog is a little bit steady, could be upside-down milk crates. Realistic retrieving bumpers can be sand-filled socks and laundered shot bags. All those things are right there begging for attention and your expertise in the off-season. So go ahead and make stuff like that. There's some places where you can buy secondhand gear online. Check them out. Make your own training table, or you just use an old picnic bench. You've got all the other stuff. Bowls, grooming tools, bedding. Those are all things that you can repurpose and cost virtually nothing. As you know, I'm not a gun snob. There are a lot of great guns made in the U.S. and a lot of great guns made in other countries, some as low as $400, $500, $600, depending on what you're looking for. With me, it's a matter of I'm going to drop it, it's going to break, it's going to look ugly very soon anyway. So as long as it shoots well and it comes with a good reputation and a great warranty, shotguns don't need to break the bank for you. Okay, so, you know, there's all sorts of things you can do in the way of travel that that may come in handy, and some of these, you know, might work for you. If you are, if you use credit cards, you probably got miles. If you got miles, you probably got hotel room nights. The hotels themselves will provide incentives. I'm kicking myself all the time because I'm on the road when I hear the radio commercial that says, yeah, stay 2 nights and get a night free. Gosh, dang it, I wish I'd done that. There are those aggregator sites like Trivago or Expedia if you're going to towns that have lodging like that. Don't spend all your money in restaurants. Take the same stuff you take to work. Pack a lunch. Park your RV at Walmart or a casino en route. And I've had a lot of luck, not all the time, so be careful about it. But get one of those apps that'll tell you where the least expensive fuel is. Sometimes it's on an Indian reservation and sometimes it's not, but it's worth the investment. The app's free and you might get money back too. At the end of, the season, if you've used your imagination, you're a little creative, your dog is happy, you're happy, even if you are wearing secondhand rock climbing pants like me. Your dog doesn't care that your gun is scratched, and your buddies may have some fun at your expense while you're lacing up your trekking boots, but at the end of the day, the odds are you've all had the same kind of a experience. Dogs had fun, the birds were cooperative, you had some great fellowship, and you were in a beautiful place. And like I said, maybe you got enough left to buy the good beer. Now it's your turn. I went to the social media and asked you to tell me about the things you think we could help ourselves by economizing on. Boy, you can tell I'm not an English major, can't you? Anyway, and some great suggestions for you. Nate Weffel says, leave the freeloaders behind. They cost in every way possible. Isn't that the truth? We've all hunted with somebody like that, and then you think, God, now he's my hunting buddy, and you know what I mean. Just cut him loose. Tobin Chadwick reminds us that supermarket purchases sometimes have a gas discount. I use it here in town. I never thought about using it out there. Thanks, Tobin. Points of all sorts on your cards, credit cards. Justin Latham says, do all of your out-of-state hunts yourself. Don't take a guide, don't go to a lodge, that sort of thing. It makes you a better hunter, dog handler, and outdoorsman. And yes, you're right, Justin. It might mean the first year is tougher, but it pays off in the long run. Dan Staber, you're right in my wheelhouse. I'm doing more and more of this because, time is precious, especially when you're hunting. Cook your food at home and then recook it simply once you get there. Tom, thanks for that lesson. I'm working on a couple of your recipes right now. Rusty Stroshine says, buy once, cry once. Quality is worth the cost. Good socks. Yeah, no, I'm a big believer. Good socks, I buy them by the dozen pairs. Good vest and gun. Nothing kills a hunt faster than breaking down. Jay Lawners, great idea. Buy shells by the case. Yeah, plan ahead. Buy them by the case. It saves you a lot of money. Jason Bell, you're absolutely right. No one ever thinks about economizing in this regard. Train your dog. Not just basic obedience and hunting skills. Spend all the money you want on boots, shells, and guns. But if a dog blows through the field and pushes every bird out, none of those savings really matter, do they? Thanks, Jason. That's a great one. Cork Green, hope you're well. Talks about something I hadn't thought about. If I had, I'd probably be living in Redfield, South Dakota. Location, location, location. Get a job and buy a home in the sticks near your favorite hunting spots. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And wish I could do it. She won't go. I hunted once with the governor of South Dakota. And we were having a great time, and he was a great guy. Mike Rounds, back in the day. Now he's a senator. Still a great guy, I'm sure. I said, if you would just get Nordstrom to build a store somewhere in South Dakota, I might be able to convince my wife to move here. Ain't going to happen. Donald Tyndall, we'll leave with your advice in mind, and it is absolutely true, and a great way to start out. And then a great way to, what do we say? Pay it forward. Find a friend who already has two of everything. Hey, if you haven't handed, that's how I got into Boy Scouts, but I'll tell you that story another time. If you haven't handed an extra something to a new friend because they don't have one, well, you got some making up to do. Whether it's a shotgun, a dog crate, a retrieving bumper, if you have an extra, find somebody who needs that extra. Great advice, Donald. Appreciate your help. All of you who have kicked in on this one, you're going to save us all a few bucks, and it's most appreciated. All right. We still got more to talk about. The bucket list bird and prime destination for it is coming up here on the Upland Nation podcast after a word from MidwayUSA.com. Whatever you're shopping for, and I just realized last night they have 24 pages of camping gear selections. For example, whether it's ammo, non-toxic ammo, target ammo this time of year, whatever you're looking for, I would start there. They carry just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. And if you're smart, and we're talking economizing here, sign up for their email or text notifications and save 10% off your next order. Youth guns to great hunting socks, they've got it at MidwayUSA.com. And once you make the investment in a firearm, you want to take good care of it. That's economy. And SageandBreaker.com is where you can get your gun cleaning and care supplies. Crafted at the highest caliber, everything from gun cleaning products such as, the expendables, the oils, the greases, the tools you'll need, as well as anything for travel and storage, gun cleaning mats, shotgun cases, range bags. It's all right there. And this time of year, if you're not on their mailing list, you're going to miss out on an upcoming sale I just predict. And that's another thing to think about. So sign up for the mailing list at sageandbreaker.com. Well, this week on the road trip, kind of surprised nobody mentioned mountain quail as a bucket list bird, because I know there are a lot of people who have it on their list. In fact, that's how I was made aware of it at first. I was talking with a turkey guide, and he said, oh, yeah, all the guys who are after their quail slam come out here, and I guide them for mountain quail. And I started digging a little bit deeper and realized, yeah, he is in the spot. This is where everybody goes. And I'm going to tell you where that spot is for mountain quail. Southwest Oregon. Yeah, I was headed over a pass into the Rogue River drainage when the first covey walked across in front of me on an old logging road. And I thought, what's wrong with those? They're bigger. They got that funny top knot that it leans the wrong way. Mountain quail. And so if you're looking for your final quail slam species, then you want to head to Southwest Oregon. The coast range of mountains between the Rogue River Valley, if you will, and the Pacific coast. There's a range of mountains there, not very high, maybe 3,000-4,000 feet high. Outside of Grants Pass, Roseburg, or Medford, Oregon. It's a good, deep, fir-covered forest that has a lot of manzanita. That's kind of a shrub. Some people call it something else, but that's the country for you and your mountain quail. Worth a look. Beautiful place. Not much pressure. Mountain quail, Southwest Oregon. That's your road trip for this week, brought to you in part by ESPAmerica.com. Hit the target and save your hearing. ESPAmerica.com offers you custom-fit digital hearing protection, and you'll be a better shooter. I can testify. You're not worried about all that noise and the flinching that comes with it. And I know there's no physical explanation for it, but the noise probably has something to do psychologically with recoil. Eliminate all of that with custom fit hearing protection devices. You get them fit right in your own town. Then the molds get sent to ESPAmerica. They make the highest quality hearing protection devices. ESPAmerica.com. Yeah, and that's why I wear them every time I take a lesson at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. You shoot more and you shoot better from a lesson that squares you away, as it were, in your technique. So whether you're looking to become a better clay target shooter, a better bird hunter, take a look at Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. MidValleyClays.com is where you learn more. All the instructors are also bird hunters. They get it, and they'll help you with that same thing. And if you're shopping for a new shotgun, remember they've always got a whole bunch of sub-gauges in stock. And Dave Fiedler, the proprietor, knows guns and hunting and has a line on hard-to-get shotguns. He'll ship anywhere. Call him first, talk about what you're looking for, and then let him do the searching for you. It's all at midvalleyclays.com. Well, I know this sounded, well, it was a whole solo turn for me, and I appreciate your paying attention. I hope you learned something, whether it's, just going on an adventure with me in northern Nevada or saving a buck or two from some of the things we have all learned over the years. If you did enjoy it, please tell one person. That's how we grow, and I'd love to keep growing at the rate we're going these days. If you left a rating, thank you so much. And thank you to our sponsors, Sage and Breaker Gun Care Products, Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, ESPAmerica.com, MidValleyClays.com, TrulockChokes.com, MidwayUSA.com, LandTrust.com, PointerShotguns.com, and HiViz Shooting Systems. They make it possible for us to bring you the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening. Until we meet here again, maybe I'll see you at the range.